you have the same employer for 2 years, making great income, your debt to income ratio is super low, let's say 35 or under 30%, and then also you have 20% down and a 740 credit score or higher, listen, I'll give you money.
That's crazy. What's going on, millionaires? It's your guy, Kai Speaks. You are tapped in for another episode of the $1 Million Mind Podcast. This is the #1 community for entrepreneurs looking to grow in that mindset, entrepreneurship, and money space. You are here in the right place if you're here for, abundance and, again, mindset hacks. I'm here with my guy, Ben, the banker, today. And before we put the camera on my guy over here, I got to give y'all some context because I've known Ben for... Man, it's been like 4 years now?
Yeah.
It's been like 4 years.
Yep. And
we got introduced in the finance space. I told you guys a little bit about my story and how I even transitioned from, my 9 to 5 over into, being a business owner and, going into entrepreneurship. And that all started with my relationship with Ben. Being a mentor, being a financial expert, financial coach, somebody that I could rely on as far as like advice on, managing and, coaching my teams and things like that. That's where our relationship started. And then I found out that my guy, Ben, has been a banker, a mortgage banker, over, the past few years. So we could pass the camera right over to my guy, Ben, and let's introduce Ben. And Ben, you tell us a little bit more context about where that journey even started, in the mortgage industry and in that finance space.
Man, I appreciate you, bro. So a little bit about me, man. So how I got started in real estate, right? Because being that I finance real estate was really from watching my dad invest in real estate. So my parents were real estate investors, and they have invested tons of properties in Philadelphia and then also internationally.
Right.
So in Africa as well. So just watching my dad kind of always have this passive income, right? And he was just really entrepreneur. Like he never worked for anybody. He actually tried to work for somebody after he tried to so-called retire, and he hated it. But because of his passion and entrepreneurship and, being an investor, I kind of watched him do what he did. And I thought when I was in college, everybody goes through that phase in college where you're kind of trying to figure out like, okay, what's next for me? And I would say about my senior year in college, trying to figure out, okay, what's life for me after college, right? Is it me going back to school, or is it me kind of just trying to see what life has for me? And I thought I was going to go and get licensed to be a realtor. And I came across a mentor of mine who kind of gave me the ins and out about the real estate industry. He was big in commercial real estate, and he told me about the mortgage industry. He was like, you're really good with numbers. You're really good with people. I think you should go into being a mortgage banker. And I didn't know what that was. I didn't even know that existed.
Right.
I was like, what is that? He was like, there are people who actually help people get financing for real estate. And I think you will be perfect for that. And I told him, I was like, don't people just go to the bank and just get the money? And he was like, yeah, they do. But there are people
they got to talk to somebody.
Yeah. But I just thought you just go online and you just apply or something. And the bank just says, yeah, you got the loan. And he was like, yeah, but there's somebody who's licensed and specialized to kind of consult those people to be able to qualify for those loans. So I looked into it, and come to find out that it was at the time, and I will say even now, it's still a industry that's in high demand. There wasn't a lot of younger bankers. I think the average age at the time was, 55 for a loan officer at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can only imagine after like a couple years, they're going to retire, and then it's just going to be, us millennials, left in the game. So I decided to apply and see if I could, get started with the classes and getting licensed. And come to find out, I came across a company that was actually willing to pay me to take the classes. Like, this is how demanding it was.
That's heavy.
They were willing to pay us. And that's how we met, because we met through a mutual friend. That's how I met Tyree. At the classes that I took with that company. But there was a company that was willing to compensate us to take the classes and get licensed.
Wow.
And that's how I got started. So I got licensed around 2017. 2017. So it's been 6 years. And man, it's been a journey. It's been a journey for sure.
Wow, 6 years in the mortgage industry, and like you mentioned, like the demand, especially being in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Now you started your journey in Philly though as a mortgage banker.
Yep.
And even in Philly though, like the saturation in the real estate market for realtors is very high. It's a lot of realtors out here.
For sure.
So like for you being a young black man, you know, trying to get into real estate, if you were, you know, if you had to do it all over again, you're saying like being a mortgage banker is the way in as opposed to trying to start all over again as a realtor.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you in terms of the saturation in the realtor sector of the industry. And the thing is, I didn't even know this, right? When people think about real estate, the first thing we jump to is a realtor. People tend to not realize that there's so many different ways to make money in real estate as a professional.
Yeah.
You don't have to just be a realtor, right? Realtor, loan officer, inspector, appraiser, attorney, right? Processor, underwriter, right? There's so many different things. contractor, right? Investor. If you're an investor, you can wholesale, right? You can buy and hold, right? You can flip. You could be an investor where you kind of you have tips and tricks to kind of go after properties through creative financing. So there's so many different ways to make money in real estate. Insurance agent, right? So many ways, but a lot of people tend to only see the glitz and glamour on social media of
even Netflix, right?
Netflix,
the shows,
the shows.
You look at them selling Sunset, selling Tampa. You look at that one sale, they got a $300,000 commission. And it's like people only see that. So I get that. So even outside of mortgage banking, you know, the audience is somewhat familiar with real estate, right? Like we had a couple conversations. Most of the conversations we had on here as far as real estate was like wholesaling. Yeah. And then of course you got the investor that is now just door hungry. They just after the door. So that's even a perspective that a lot of our listeners have of real estate now. Yeah. You know, from the investor side of things, and then like the unprofessional, like the G League of real estate, which is wholesaling, right? Yeah. So if you could, for someone who is, you know, entrepreneurial minded, but low on funds, you know, currently hustling with a 9-to-5, you know, to make ends meet, but they might have a little bit to like, you know, invest in like some certificates or some coaching or something like that. What would be one of these other, you know, tickets into real estate that people should put their eyes on outside of being a realtor or a mortgage banker? Man, that's a good question. So it really depends on the person and what they're looking to get out of their career, right? And skill sets, I'm sure. Skill sets, exactly. So for me, like it was crazy that in college, I'm forgetting his name, but the person who mentored me, can't remember his name right now. But at the time when I was in college, it was crazy that he realized from my skill set that I would be good in the banking industry. He was like, you good with numbers, you good with people. I think you would kill it in sales. You should go into this industry. So it really just depends on the person. So if you're somebody who's, I would say, very like analytical, like to break things down and put them together, right? Or very technical, an underwriter might be good for you. So being an underwriter, underwriters make really, really good money, especially experienced underwriters. They make 6 figures. And that's the person typically after you consult with your families on what to do to get qualified. Once they put in that application is typically going to the underwriter. It goes to the underwriter. The underwriter makes the final decision. So if you're somebody who is really technical, good, you know, pays attention to details, right? Likes to really break things down and like to really understand it. I'm talking every piece of it. That's what kind of understanding financing is in real estate, right? Because we have different programs that people can qualify for, but to understand, you know, all of those programs, you need to be a very detailed individual. So if you're someone who's very detailed, like me, I could be very detailed at times, but then I can be scattered. Right. So maybe being an underwriter might not be for me. But if you're also somebody who's maybe shy, needs to be in the background, but
you're really good at problem solving skills, a processor might be good for you, right? So you are the man behind the man, right? So I am the person who's the originator. So I'm the person who's, in front of people. I talk to people, I shake hands, I kiss babies, and I let people know, hey, this is what I do. Let me help you out if you need it, right? The processor is kind of like the sidekick to the loan officer, right? So if you're not somebody who wants to be in the forefront of everything, but you rather just be like in the background and just say, hey, I like to verify the documents. I'm very detailed. I'm organized, right? But I'm shy. Don't really want to talk to people, right? Processing. And processors make really, really good money. Processors make north of 60, 70. Experienced processors make six figures. So there are so many things. Appraisers, they make really, really good money. So if you're somebody who, it takes time to get into that industry, but if you're somebody who loves real estate, right, really has a passion for it, but also has a passion for, again, detail, right? Detail, you also need to be able to simple math, right, in terms of seeing comps and being able to understand, okay, square footage, bedroom size, bathrooms, and then also how those homes compare with each other, things like that. So it really just depends on the person and what you're looking to get out of your career.
Yeah, you gave us some sauce there. It definitely depends on the person, and I would from that spiel, I would definitely encourage the listeners to like do their own research. First, identify what your skills are, what you good at, what you might be passionate about. If you like being in front of people, if you like being behind the scenes, take those things into consideration, and then kind of pair it up to see how can you get your feet wet in the real estate.
Yeah.
Now, with you being the personality, the one with the personality, talking to the people, but also having a really good relationship with these underwriters and things of that nature. Putting yourself in the underwriter's shoes, what looks like the most attractive application? Like, how can people get their names in front of the underwriter and be like, the underwriter be like, I gotta get them some money. Like, I gotta get them in a home. What does that look like? Does that even exist?
It does. I mean, honestly, the most perfect file would be a 740 credit score higher. Okay. 20% down.
Whew. That 20% right there.
20% down. Debt to income ratio of like no higher than, I say 35. No higher than 30, 35. Debt to income ratio, and a consistent solid employment history of at least 2 years. Yeah. So if you have the same employer for 2 years, making great income, your debt to income ratio is super low, let's say 35 or under 30%, and then also you have 20% down and a 740 credit score higher, listen, I'll give you money.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Because like, here's where I find that problematic, right? Because to an underwriter, cool, you got the 30% less debt to income ratio. You got a 740 credit score. Yeah. It's that 20% down. Yeah. Are you saying like, because you have programs out there like first time, home buyer programs that allow you to put only 3% down.
Facts.
Are there different types of underwriters that are looking at those, or are these the same underwriters? Because if they looking at them like, I would prefer them to put down 20%, that's kind of like shooting the people who are really like not even just banking on the 3% down, right? It's just like taking advantage of a blessing. Like who would rather put 20% down if you got an opportunity to only put down 3? So that's what we talk about, a home that's let's just say $100,000 for basic math. Yeah. Would you rather put down $20,000 or $3,000? Like, you can use that other, $17,000 for repairs or whatever. So it's like, where's the balance at in that? Like, like if you relying on that, how are you also like kind of help me out here? Like, how does that make sense?
Yeah. So yes, it's the same underwriters that look at these files. Typically, underwriters are split in ways where you have your underwriters who view like Govy files, which are like your FHA, your VA, USDA programs. Then you have underwriters that only review like conventional programs, right?
Got you.
So what you're referring to with the 3% down is the conventional loan program. Now, the thing is, with a conventional loan, you can put down 3% and you could put down 20%. The thing is, the way we look at lending, right? Put yourself in the shoes of the person lending the money, right?
Got you, right?
Put
like
yourself
if
in
you were
those.
to lend your auntie or your uncle some money, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
right? It's like, for example, when you talk about the down payment, right? If someone says, "Hey, look, here's my collateral. I want to buy this glass right here, right? Yo, Q, I don't got, let's say this glass is $20. I don't got the $20 to buy this glass, right? But I really want the glass, right? And then there's other people behind that person that's like, man, I really want this glass too. It's $20. It's $20. I don't have it. We don't have it, but we really want the glass. But you got the $20. You have the money, right? You could afford the glass cash, right? If the first person who came to you said, hey, look, give me a loan for the glass. I give you right now $2 to get the loan for the glass, right? Let's move everything else aside. Credit, all that is irrelevant. We just talking about the money that they're giving you up front. But someone else comes and says, I give you $5 up front. Who you more inclined to go with?
Off of first instinct, the person gave me more money.
Giving you more money.
Right.
Why? Why is that?
Because that's less money they owe me.
Exactly. And they have more skin in the game.
Yeah.
You're thinking you're more inclined to pay me back because you gave me more money than the guy who is only willing to give me $2. So if anything, right, if you don't pay me back, you lost more money, right? And I at least got something. I got $3 more than I would have if he didn't pay me back.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So that's what I tell people. Look at it from a lender's perspective. Same thing with credit, right? Mm-hmm. People look at credit and they go, well, sometimes credit ain't fair, or like, why is it that when it comes to credit, if you have, a lower credit score, you get a higher interest rate and et cetera. You got to think, if you had a bunch of friends, if you had a group of friends, right, and this one friend was known for just borrowing money from the whole friend group, but never paid anybody back, but then they came to you and said, hey, Q, can I borrow some money? But from friend 1, 2, and 3, they never paid them back.
Right. That all sounds good though. That all sounds good. But even as the buyer of the glass,
yeah.
If I got an opportunity to qualify to only give $1 versus 10 of the $20, I'm gonna still put down that $1.
Oh,
right?
Of course, 100%.
So if for the people in the back who still listening to all right, Ben, that sound good. I'm still going for that 3.5%.
Cool, of course.
How can they again make themselves stand out? Like, is it the debt to income ratio they really want to focus on? Is it getting to that 740 credit score they really want to focus on? Is it what's the lesser of the two evils? Like, if you got to take that low down payment, what's the thing that you absolutely want to focus on?
If you got to take that lesser down, if you have to put as little down as possible, you really want to focus on your credit. And funny enough, typically, if your credit is really good, that tells me your debt to income is really good.
Got you, because that's 30% of your score.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I always tell people there's a correlation between your credit and your debt to income. There are people, anytime I've pulled somebody's score and they had excellent credit, I promise you they had minimal debt. Promise you. I'm talking, they barely got any active debts. Like, they may have a credit card here or there and an auto loan. That's it. Or if they have student loans, they on time with their student loan payments. That's it. But other than that, minimal debt. They manage debt really well. They keep their debts minimal.
Yeah.
And it is really just you knock out two birds with one stone. So if it's not the down payment, the credit score.
Here's what I'm curious about, because is it like the history, right? Are they watching how long you've maintained that 750 credit score, right? Like, let's say the one person had a 750 from October 2020 to now. That's a long time maintaining a 750 credit score.
Yeah.
But what if somebody else, like just last month, had a 630 credit score, moved some things around, paid down some debt, maybe got a trade line there or whatever, right? Like, and then got to a 750 before they apply for the loan. Like, is that also taken into perspective as well, or are they just looking like you got the 750 credit score?
I'll tell you this. I've been in situations before where I've pulled people's credit and it was below what we needed. And I said, hey, pay this off, pay this down, pay this down, pay this off.
And then reapply.
And then I repulled the score like 45 days later. And now we have a qualifying score, and now they get into the home.
Well, so is we in there? You just got to get. You just got to hit the numbers.
You just got to get the score.
Okay,
it's irrelevant.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So like, boom, back to that 3.5% down.
Yeah.
You got people who are looking at that and be like, okay, we in there. Like $100,000 home, all I need is 3,000. Boom. Is that really enough? Like, how much realistically does a person need to have saved, or does a couple need to have saved? To realistically be in that home, even taking advantage of that low down payment.
Got you. So it depends on the purchase price. It depends on the purchase price. So if you're buying a home that's $250 versus somebody else buying a home that's $400,000, y'all down payment amount gonna be completely different, right?
Right. So let's keep it at the percentages.
Yeah. So at 3.5%, you talking about if I could do that math? Anybody want to do that math for me? 3.5%, 200,000.
So we looking at about 7,000.
Yeah, 7,000. And if we looking at someone buying a $400,000 home at 3.5%, right? That's about, what's that, 16? That's about 16. So that's almost over double like what, the person who was buying a $200,000 home at. So it really just depends on the purchase price of the property that you're trying to attain. But what I will say is you don't always have to go with the 3.5% route, right? You can go conventional, put 3% down, or there are down payment assistance programs out there. Only thing I will say about that is down payment assistance programs do have overlays. So although those programs where you could just put down the 3.5% and meet the minimum requirements, once you start trying to borrow more money to cover your down payment, now that's when things get a little bit more restrictive.
What do you mean, like start asking for more money to cover the down payment?
To cover the down payment. So let's say, for example, so we have a program called Atlanta Housing Authority, and our company actually just got involved with that program where they will give you up to $20,000 towards the down payment of your home, which is great and all, right? But there are additional stipulations now because you're borrowing extra money, right? So there are going to be stipulations about which counties you can buy the home in.
Oh, right, because you still got to borrow the difference from whatever the home costs minus the 20,000.
Exactly.
And you borrowing the 20,000.
So let's say, for example, like we said, I can't even say the 400,000 example because the other stipulation is that the purchase price of the property can't surpass 350,000. See what I'm saying? So now that's an additional stipulation. Another stipulation is you can't surpass the AMI of the county. So that's the area median income, which is typically about $80,000 in Fulton County, right? So now if, let's say you wanted to buy a home with your wife, right? You could qualify for the down payment assistance program because let's say you making 60, right? Let's say you're making 60, but then your wife comes into the picture and she's making 40. Now both of y'all combined make six figures. You can't qualify for it.
Wow.
See what I'm saying? So now, and it makes sense, right? People wonder why.
And she would have to, because if we're legally married, she will have to come into the picture in the household to bring it in that 40,000.
100%.
You can't. So you can't even apply by yourself.
You can't apply it. Nope. Because the way they're going to look at it is how many people are living in the household. They're going to, if you're married, you're going to fill out the application. People don't fraud on your applications because people have tried that. Don't fraud. Be honest. You're married. Okay, cool. We need to see tax returns.
Yeah.
And once they see, okay, you file joint or you file married, okay, who are you married to? And then we need to see their tax returns. And that's going to give it away right there that you are married. There are two people that are going to be living in this home unless y'all are separated, getting divorced or whatever, which probably not the case. But yes, if you do apply by yourself, you still have to include that second individual or anybody that's going to be living in that house. Yeah. Income. So if you have a child in there that has a job at McDonald's, you got to calculate their income in there too.
That's crazy because like a part of me is conflicted in that because like, all right, boom, I get that's the whole point of assistance, right? That's the whole point of assistance, right? We're going to come in and we're going to assist you, and there are these stipulations like, okay, if you make over 100,000, obviously you don't need assistance. But then it's also like, damn, it's like you also being punished for being able to be in it, like, because like let's be honest, like 100,000 in a household that's decent. But you still, you still got to be very cautious on where you're spending your money as well. I guess the point I'm making is like, it's not really a point. It's just like, it's almost like you get rewarded. Because I personally have experienced people, especially in Philly, like who get awarded or rewarded for being in these impoverished situations. And it almost makes them want to stay in the situation because of reaping the benefits of being impoverished. Like, oh, I don't want to make more than X because then I'm going to be taken off my welfare. Or I don't want to make more than this because I'm going to get taken off of Social Security or XYZ, whatever it might be. And it's kind of like, that's what these programs are doing more than actually providing real assistance.
We going into politics now.
We are.
But no, I feel you though. Now listen, I'm 100% with you. Trust me.
Yeah,
there are
crazy.
in some instances I have that same thought process about it. Like, man, that's crazy that, if you are doing the right thing, if you're making over a certain amount, you can't, because it's assistance, right? They want to help the people who need it. But again, to what you said, if you know that if I do better, I don't get the benefits, right? I'm going to be held to a standard of, oh, you're doing better, so you can do it yourself.
You got to come out of pocket.
You got to,
3 to 10 times more than everybody else because you have X amount of funds.
But then again, I look at it and go, also on the other side of that, if it's a ultra wealthy person being like, I need down payment assistance on my home, you tripping.
If you bring in, if you're making 7 figures,
nah.
Even if you're making past 500, it's like, all right, but like, you don't do that.
You good, man. Don't be. So I see it from both sides. I feel like, honestly, I think, and this is why, and I'll admit it, I'm a little anti down payment assistance. I can honestly say that, and the reason is just like you said, right? If everybody can't get it, nobody should get it. Let's put everybody on the same playing field. If you can't afford to put a down payment on a home, owning a home is a major responsibility.
Yeah, and then it's also like, are you even doing it for the right reasons? Because I want to get into that next too. Like, you got a lot of people who rush into buying homes because it's kind of like idolized as this American dream. It's like, hurry up and get me in my home with the white picket fence, with my own yard, so I can have my own space. And that's just what I want. Not looking at the actual, responsibilities of like, setting yourself up, setting your family up, making sure that y'all can, maintain this home long term. So looking at it like that from a different perspective, like consider like the average 9-to-5er, like, what should be even the mindset behind buying a home? Like, are there certain sacrifices that people should consider going into buying their first home? Should we also consider, buying a home in the neighborhoods we really like, but really can't afford versus, settling for neighborhoods that we don't like, but is all we can afford? Should we be looking at these homes as investments? Should we be looking at it as like this, like the first home? Should we look at it as this is where we're going to stay for the next 20 years. Like, what's the mindset behind being this first time home buyer?
Man, that's a good question. And the answer, it varies, bro, because it really depends on where you are in life and what you want to get out of the property, right? So I always, before moving to Atlanta, my mindset was my first property was going to be an investment property, period.
Right.
That was my mindset.
That's still the mindset.
Well,
go ahead. Did it change?
It changed. I met the love of my life, got married.
Yeah, it always happened like that.
And now I ended up making, and by the way, I believe that your primary home is not an investment, it's a liability.
Yeah.
That's what I believe, period. That's just what it is. And people could fight me for it. The home that you live in, your primary residence, it's not an investment until you sell it. And the reason why I say that is because a home is a liability. Your income is paying for that home. If it's not making you money, it's costing you money, period. It's a liability. So until you sell it, right, and you sell it for a profit, that's when it becomes an investment per se, right? Because an investment is supposed to be something that adds to you, not take away.
Yeah.
Right? So whether you're paying rent or you're paying a mortgage, people go, well, the American dream is to own a home, that's your first major investment, right? Yeah, but if you're living in a home and the home is not producing any type of income for you, it's just costing you money, because there's a lot of people who buy homes and have home buyer's remorse, right? Or they're house poor, right?
Now, what if they buy it? Now, technically, they still have a mortgage, but let's say now the equity in the home has went up. Now, does it then become an investment? Even if you still have a mortgage on it, but if you were to, like, let's say you bought this home for $300,000, you got a mortgage on it. Mm-hmm. The mortgage is probably a little bit more than what you will pay for rent, but fast forward 12 months later, the home is now worth $375,000.
Yeah.
Would you still consider it a liability at that point?
Yes.
Because it's not providing any income.
It's not providing any income. The equity, a lot of people say, okay, the equity is the investment. The equity is the asset, right? That's the asset. It's the equity, right? Okay, if you live in the home, what is the only way you have access to that equity?
If you sell it or if you refinance?
Boom. If you sell it. And remember, I said the only way a primary home becomes a real asset is when you sell it. Yeah. Right? That's when that investment pays itself back. Gotcha. Right? But if you live in it and you take out a loan, you're taking out money. Granted, it's tax-free money, but it's not interest-free. You're paying interest back.
So what's your thoughts on the house hack then?
On what do you mean by house hacking?
Like, you got your primary home.
Yeah.
But you might have like an additional dwelling unit or a mother-in-law suite or a garage or something that you convert into a living quarters to be able to bring on a tenant.
So the way I look at that is that can definitely and that is the only way really that you can utilize your primary residence as a true asset, as an investment, is if you house hack it. And that's why I said it really just depends on the mindset of the person. So if you want to go into it like I did initially, my first home, I was thinking it's going to be a multi-family home. I'm a house hack. I'm going to live in one unit, rent out the other units. And then after a year, I'm moving out of it and then I'm buying the next one. But it didn't work out that way for me.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree with you on that. It is an asset once either you're not paying the mortgage. So either you're breaking even on the mortgage to where that property isn't costing you anything, right? Or you're actually gaining something from it on a month-to-month basis from an income standpoint. Anytime it's costing you money, like you're losing money through the property, it's a liability.
So you're saying you just have to be okay with that fact.
That's
just call it what it is. Call a spade, and just either be okay with the liability or not be okay with it and do something different.
Exactly. I feel like even a car can be an asset. Because people call cars, it used to be cars are a liability. Oh, that's the worst thing you could buy is a car. It depreciates it, this is that. A car can be an asset. You could say it's a liability, but if you use it the right way, if I have a car, okay, the monthly payment is $300 a month, insurance is $100 a month, right? But I rent it out on Turo, right? Or it's paying itself, or I'm actually making cash flow from the vehicle. It's an asset.
Yeah.
If I lose the vehicle, I'm gonna be really upset because that vehicle actually helps me make a living. It's an income stream, exactly. So that's the same way you got to look at a property. A property is the same way. So I always recommend, and you were talking about like, okay, how should you buy a property? Whether looking at neighborhoods that you really want to live in, or buy a property that you might not be able to afford, but the neighborhood is better. Again, it really just depends on where you are in life. Now, I don't recommend you ever buy anything that you really can't afford, right? Mm-hmm. Always make sure that you're taking care of yourself financially. Look at always worst case scenarios. Okay, like if something happens to me, my wife, what can I do to, make sure I can still make these payments, right? Because once you sign up for that note, it's on you.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this because Brandon Turner of the Bigger Pockets podcast, he had made a statement that was along the lines of looking at, as far as neighborhood and pricing is concerned, looking at a neighborhood you really like. And he also said, don't force yourself in a situation you can't afford, but finding a home in that neighborhood at the most you can afford, right? Like, so let's say, for example, the Vinings. Mm-hmm. We know the housing in the Vinings can go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But if somebody who really likes the Vinings, they will benefit off of finding, even if it's a dud, a home in the Vinings. Let's say they can only afford a $250,000 mortgage. Not saying you could find that in Vinings right now.
Good luck.
But you know, you do find this unicorn.
Yeah.
You're better off going to get that than to get a $250,000 home, let's say in
College Park.
College Park, right?
Yeah.
Because you really, for some reason, don't want to live in College Park.
Yeah.
What do you think about that advice? Or, you know, how would you, you know, because the audience is a little bit different. For your audience and for the people who come to you for advice, how would you, you know, help them unpack that advice?
I agree with that.
Okay.
And actually, I'll even bring it home. Literally, like that's what me and my wife did.
Okay.
Like when we bought our home, and this is probably the best time to buy a home if you can afford it. If you're ready, this is probably the best time because interest rates are higher, demand is lower. The home that we bought appraised for almost $500,000. We got it for $450,000. So think about that. We walked into a home with $50,000 in equity, right? So going back to your guy's point, it's not $200,000, but the schools in that area are great. The neighborhood is great. You know, there isn't much going on. It's a super quiet neighborhood. Everybody's super friendly. It's a 3,500 square foot home. It was everything we wanted. The problem was, and the house stayed on the market for almost a month. The problem was the home wasn't all the way put together. It needed some work, right? The floors, the original floors that came with the home when it was built in 2012, never changed, never taken care of. It was scratched up. It was dirty. It was ugly. The carpet was horrible. The colors on the wall, the color in the walls, the ceilings, it was horrible. Even the kitchen, we still working on when we're gonna do the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
The bathrooms, everything. So nothing was upgraded in the home, right? But knowing that there aren't gonna be as many buyers willing to come into this home with today's interest rates, right? They're not gonna be willing to come into the home and say, wait, hold up. My mortgage payment gonna be this? And you telling me I still gotta do all of this? Nah.
So you get the leverage.
So you get the leverage if you have, and that's when if you have the capital. If you have the capital, right? Because now, like I said before, once you get into the home is a liability because it's just gonna cost us money, right? So we know that, hey, we gotta make sure we come in strong knowing that we can do or accomplish all of the work we want to in this home because we're winning on the negotiation side, right? Because initially they almost wanted $500,000 for the home. And the comps in the area, the homes in that area that are comparable to it are going for $500,000. But we're like, nah, the condition of those homes versus your home is a lot different. And the seller was a motivated seller. And we were able to talk them down to the point where we were able to bring down, we saved about $30,000 on the upfront cost of buying that home.
So even with the interest rates being where they are, like, what does that look like for the new buyer, the person that doesn't have that experience, doesn't know how to negotiate and find that leverage? Where are they able to, get into a good situation with the interest rates the way that they are? Even though the demand is higher, there's less buyers on the market. Why would you say it's still like the perfect time?
It's still a good time because with less demand, and I'm not going to say that demand is like completely, at a mute right now or that there's no one buying a home. That's not the case. There's still a lot of people out there that want to buy. It's just a lot lower because of interest rates, right? So being that there isn't a ton of demand as much as we were accustomed to when rates were at 2% and 3%, you're going to see homes stay on the market a lot longer. The homes that people don't necessarily want are going to sit on the market, and it gives you the opportunity to now negotiate. I always wanted to go. That's why I don't like new construction. I hate new construction.
Okay, let's talk about that because we had a conversation about that before, new construction versus the home with the old bones. Why do you dislike new construction versus a home that was, it's 2023 now, built in 2012?
I dare you try to go negotiate with a builder.
It's hard.
It ain't hard. It's impossible. You're not going to negotiate with a builder. If a builder say, this is what they selling the home for, that's what you got to take. There's no negotiation. and your earnest money, the moment you put that money down is on the line. So you can't walk away from the deal. And if you do, you lose your earnest money. That's thousands of dollars that you could possibly lose for nothing if financing falls out.
Right.
Or if you just decide that, hey, I found something else better.
Yeah.
Right. So new construction, there's no negotiation. And for me, right, again, a home is a liability. If I'm going to go into the home spending my monthly payment every month, every year, right? And then also, if it's a long or short term, it doesn't matter. You make your money anytime you buy anything. Let me say that. Anytime you buy anything, you make your money on the sell of it. So that sales transaction, whether you're a buyer or you're a seller, you make your money as a buyer on how you negotiate. That's where you make your money. Every investor knows that. As a wholesaler, as a flipper, you make your money on the purchase of anything, right? Because now when you go back to tap into the equity or sell the property, right? You can only sell it for so much. But how you make your money is how can you negotiate? And you're not negotiating with a builder. They're not going to negotiate with you.
Right.
Yeah. It's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And back to the interest rates, because we are in a time where interest rates are so high right now. What does that look like in the future for refinancing for whatever reason? Like, are a lot of these mortgages coming with fixed rates? Are they, what's the other word I'm looking for? The other term?
Adjustable rate
Adjustable rate.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like long term? Like, are people able to get in now? Because people are very scared of the interest rates.
Yeah.
That's what's paralyzing a lot of people. Is it an opportunity for them to come back in maybe 5-10 years later and refinance with a lower interest rate? Is that something that's possible?
Oh, for sure. That's definitely the game plan.
Gotcha.
100%. That is definitely the game plan. When my wife and I decided to buy a home, that's always been my game plan, was I'm going to refinance. I mean, I'm not even going to, my interest rate is a 6.5.
That's
like,
not that bad. I know some people that's up in there like 10.
Whew, they must have different kind of financing.
Right. So like because you even had some hesitancy saying the 6 is high. Like what's the sweet spot? Like 3, 4, 5?
Right now? Or just like in general?
What are people used to where people are saying, oh, interest rate, I'm scared to buy? What are people used to hearing?
Our sweet spot, like when our economy was moving, like prior to COVID, before the feds needed to do all of those rate cuts and stuff, we were good at around like the mid to high 4s, close to 5, like low 5s, high 4s.
Do you think we'll get back to that point?
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
But the question is when.
Right. And do you wait? Do you advise people waiting to get back to that point?
Don't do it.
Right.
The 100% don't do it. If you want to buy a home, do it if you have the means to, because not everybody has the means to. If you have the means to, don't wait. I don't care where you go, new construction, existing, get a home. Because the population of millennials and then Gen Z, we're like, I forgot what the stat is, but we're like almost double the boomers.
Wow.
In turn, I'm not sure. I might be wrong, but I just know there's more of us than the boomers. So imagine that with the low inventory we already have, right? The amount of buyers that's going to bum rush the market once rates go back down to 4%, not even 4, 5%. When rates went down to 5% for that brief moment, I think it was in the beginning of the year. There was a tick. Like people start coming back out and buying homes.
Yeah, then it was nothing on the market, no inventory. So sellers was going crazy, like, oh no, I want $600,000 for this $300,000 shack.
Exactly, and people will pay for it though.
Right?
Why? Because my monthly payment is going to be super reasonable for the home that I'm getting. So I wouldn't advise anybody wait, man. If you can do it, because what you're going to see is when rates go back down to 5%. You're going to see COVID all over again. And then now, if you don't have money to purchase a home, like capital, if you don't have liquid funds to be able to really because you can't negotiate again.
Yeah.
Once you get in a market like that where there's a ton of demand, low inventory, like
you got to come out swinging, highest and best offer from the rip.
That's it.
Definitely want to look at how much cash you can put down. Earnest money got to be out the wazoo.
For real.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
It's going to be crazy.
So if people are not, if the advice is to not wait, and we're trying to urge people to not be scared of these interest rates, what are some loan terms that people should shy away from, especially if the goal in the future is to refinance and to take advantage of like playing the long game?
So there are a couple programs that you can actually take advantage of that can help you keep your rate low until the economy. Because the reason why rates are high, and this is why I always encourage anybody I help get into a home, stay in tune with the market, right? You don't got to watch CNBC every day, but stay in tune with the market because rates follow the economy. That's all it is. When inflation is through the roof, rates are going to go up to slow down the economy. But when inflation is at 2%, like we're normally used to seeing, you're going to see interest rates get cut. So being that we're just waiting for the economy to just tighten up a little bit, that could be in a year, it could be in 2 years, right? You could take advantage of a 2-1 buy down. So let's say today,
2-1 buy down.
A 2-1 buy down. So let's say today, right? Rates are at 7%, right? 7%, that's not too far off. But you can actually use the seller's money, right? Negotiating, again, because we're in prime time to negotiate, the seller is willing to give you money to close on the home. So you can take the seller's money and buy down the interest rate by 2% lower than what your qualifying rate is. So for the first year, instead of having a 7%, you'll have a 5% interest rate. And for the second year, you'll have a 6%. And then for the third year and beyond, it's going to be at a 7%. But the idea is before that third year hits, interest rates would have came down and now you could refinance, right? So
what do you have to do to take advantage of that 2% buy down? Do you have to put down more cash, or
you taking the seller's money to do it? It doesn't come from your pocket, the seller's money.
Okay. Oh, so it's like a seller contribution.
Seller's contribution.
Does that come out of the purchase price or what? How does that look like? Let's say numbers wise, we buying this house for $200,000. We put our 3.5% down, so we put down our $7,000, and we looking at a 7% interest rate. What does that look like on the seller side for me to do that 2-1 buy down?
So the seller is given, typically I say like you want to give about 3% of the sales price. The seller would give about 3% of the sales price to the buyer to close on the home.
Okay, so they'll knock down essentially another $7,000 off of the home.
Not off of it, they're actually giving you the money. Like that's money that you get at the closing table, and you could use it towards your cash to close or towards buying down your interest rate.
So at the closing table, when they get their cash, they could actually wire those extra funds to the buyer.
So during the process of actually buying the home, when you're getting the loan, so up front you're negotiating with the seller, right? So let's say the seller is super motivated, right? Home is what, $200,000, like you said, right? Seller is super motivated. They want to sell the home. You guys have the down payment money, but you don't have you have the down payment money, you have the closing cost money, but the interest rates are kind of holding you back from buying a home, right? So the seller, being that they're very motivated, they want to see you get into the home. They'll say, hey, look, I'll give you $10,000 to close on the home. You can negotiate that. You can negotiate receiving seller's concession, closing cost money from the seller. You can negotiate that. A lot of people don't know that. If you have a good realtor that knows how to negotiate, and again, this is why it's imperative that if you can buy, do it sooner rather than later, because now you have room to negotiate. When I bought my home, I was able to negotiate $10,000. Well, our realtor, I won't say me. She did a great job.
Right.
She was able to negotiate on top of reducing the sales price of the property, $10,000 in closing costs for us. Though that $10,000 we could have used towards either buying down the interest rate or just to our overall cash to close. So now if we got to come to the table with $30,000, we only got to bring 20 because the seller said, hey, I give you $10,000 to close on the home.
Right. So any instance that, let's say, for example, a buyer is unable and is unsuccessful to get that 2-1 buy down and they concede anyway, it's like, okay, 7%, 8% interest is kind of tough, but we want to pull the trigger because we can maybe refinance in the long, 5 years later or 3 years later, right? In that case, do you want to go into a fixed mortgage or an adjustable mortgage? Because I think where people fear the adjustable is like every year that interest rate can go up even more, right? Or are there terms with that? Like, are they unable to, even in an adjustable mortgage, am I understanding that wrong? Like, are they unable to, increase it every year, or are there periods where it has to at least be fixed?
Yeah. So with an adjustable rate mortgage, there's a ceiling on adjustable rate mortgages. Now,
Okay.
adjustable rate mortgages and buy downs are two different things.
I figured so.
Yeah. So first of all, adjustable rate mortgages right now aren't even a thing because those rates are actually worse right now than fixed rates. So no one is even getting adjustable rate mortgages because of the way they price out right now in the market.
They're already high.
They're higher than fixed rate mortgages.
Wow, you would think that if they adjustable, they might come in competitive, right?
Adjustable rate mortgages still follow the market. That's what it is. It's just another product, but it just follows the market, like the stock market. Like that's all it is, right? So the buy down is a product, though, right? That lenders offer to just offset what's currently going on in the market. So that's through the lender. But in terms of adjustable rate mortgage, lenders don't have control over adjustable rate mortgages.
I got you. So the buy down is essentially a product created by lenders for them to essentially get more than that 3% down that the buyer's trying to put down, essentially.
Not necessarily get 3% more because you still put down your 3% down.
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying, look. So right. So the buyer said, okay, we taking advantage of this, 3%. We're gonna put 3% down. Then the lenders in their mind is like, okay, we want to work with them. We said we'll work with them at the 3% down. Let's create this product to give them an option to get a 2-1 buy down.
Yep.
Where we can at least collect some extra cash on top of that from the seller. Is that essentially?
The cash is for you guys, though.
Oh,
the cash
it doesn't
is for
go
you guys.
It doesn't go to the bank.
How can I put it? It does, but the money is geared to you guys because it's helping you save money. It's your money.
So I don't have to give it to the bank.
You could. So let's say, for example, right, is your money in the sense that let's take 2-1 buy down out of it, right?
Right.
Let's say you're buying a $200,000 home. Seller is willing to give you $10,000, right? So let's say your down payment and closing cost is $15,000, right, for a $200,000 home. If that seller is willing to give you $10,000, that money doesn't go to the bank. That money goes to you. So now you don't have to bring $15,000 to the table. You bring $5,000 to the table.
Got you.
See what I'm saying?
So it just lessens my down payment.
It lessens your down payment, and also even with the 2-1 buy down, yes, it goes to the lender, but it's going towards your payment.
Right. So at the end of the day, you were expected to put a certain amount down in the closing on the closing statement.
Yeah.
You see all these itemized, deductions, and you see what was going to the pot, and then it kind of helps you deduct what you have to bring to the table.
Exactly. That's all it is. It's your money. It's not the lender's money. The lender does not take that seller concession. It's like, ooh, I'm about to make more money. Nah, that money is legally yours. That's your money. You decide whatever you want to do with it. Do you want to put it towards there are people like veterans, right, who have to put no money down. If they have minimal closing costs, they walk away with money at the table.
I was about to say, so they could cash out at the closing table.
They could cash out at the closing table.
End up, making an extra $7,000-$10,000.
Make an extra 1, 2, 3, 7, whatever.
Right. Wow.
So, yep. So that's your money that you can take advantage of. But again, it goes back to being able to negotiate. And we're in the market right now. And I think we're probably going to be in this market maybe for about another year. I think definitely going into the new year we will be. This is prime time to negotiate. Unless it's a new construction. If you're dealing with new construction, ain't no way you're negotiating.
Now we know, because I've been in the negotiation business for a minute. You got some negotiation skills as well. You mentioned how you had a fire realtor help you out with that. For our folks that's listening who don't even know a lick of negotiations and are newbies and very new to this market, very new to the buying process, what are some questions and how can they vet out these realtors to know that they're bringing on some heavy hitters on their team that could take on some of these negotiations on their behalf?
Got you. Not all realtors are built the same.
Right.
I would definitely say that. Listen, this is the reality of this industry. Well, especially on the realtor side, right? Only about 20% of realtors are actually doing most of the work. Only 20%.
Yeah.
So the other 80 only get it when they can or aren't even doing anything.
Yeah, they're still working jobs. They got 9-to-5s too.
Exactly. Now, nothing against them. They still trying to, make a living and make it out here in this market. But I would prefer a agent that has real life experience, that has experience with not only in the industry, but in the current market. So I always tell people, when you're talking to a realtor, the first question you need to be asking them outside of, what your name is, what do you like to do, what's your family, what's your background, such, because you kind of want your agent to you want to understand them, and then them also understand you, right, as a person, because you're about to make a major purchase, right?
Yeah.
Like buying a home. You want to make sure they know who you are, what you like, what you're about. You should be asking them, how long have you been licensed? And in the last 3 to 6 months, how many deals have you closed? In the last 3 to 6 months, what have you done in the last, preferably 90 days, right? Mm-hmm. In this market, you could say 6 months because the market has been pretty consistent for the last 6 months. How many deals have you closed? If they've closed only one deal in the last 6 months, probably not the agent,
That's going to get you that gas.
Yeah.
Right.
Because one, are you desperate for the deal now? Because when realtors are desperate, right, buyers don't pay realtors, sellers do. So they want to get to the close. I mean, they're motivated to get you to the closing table, but at the same time, they have to advocate for you, right? I don't want anybody who's starving on my team. I want people who are hungry, but not starving.
Hungry and starving is a difference. And
Big difference.
To give people context, like just being in the sales space, like, I've noticed a difference in my sales performance based, when I started in a new sales gig or on a new offer, not having any money versus having, a couple thousand in the bank. Is like, you gotta, your sense of urgency is different.
Exactly.
You still got the sense of urgency, like you're trying to get the deal closed and you're trying to advance. But if they not moving, if they not working on your terms, it's like, I could go to the next seller if I need to.
Exactly.
Because you're not coming with what my buyer need. I get what you're saying like that. So for the people, to give y'all the context, what he's saying is like, you want somebody that is willing to like really sit there and tell a seller like, look, my buyer, AKA you, wants XYZ. If you can't do this, we're gonna find somebody else who can.
Boom, exactly.
At the end of the day.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
So you put out a lot of good content on TikTok, giving people these very similar tips. Yep. In today's market and yesterday's market, what do you feel like are like some common myths that people still are not grasping or need to get a hold of before they make this move and pull these triggers as far as, becoming homeowners?
You got to put 20% down to buy a home. That's one. Right. You need excellent credit to buy a home. You can't have like collections, late payments to buy a home. You had a bankruptcy 5 years ago, can't buy a home.
That's tough. I thought that, because we talked about the credit being at the 750, I thought that, collections and stuff like that was a no. You could still get into a home with collections.
I've been able to help people who've had multiple collections on their credit and still get them into a home. The lowest credit score that I've been able to assist somebody with was a 588 credit score.
But that interest rate ain't gonna be nice though, is it?
The interest rate was actually better than what it is today. That person who had a 588 credit score, what was that, 2 years ago, has a better interest rate than I do right now on my home, and my credit score is 800.
Wow, how you work that deal out? Who they had to sign?
It's more so about first of all, they went FHA. That's number one, and the second is they put 20% down. Right, they have more skin in the game.
Okay,
right,
okay.
With having
even going FHA, you could still put 20% down.
Of course.
Why go FHA then at that point?
Because FHA is a government program. And they're willing to take more risk than conventional programs when you have a score that low. Conventional won't take a score below a 620.
Okay, got you.
So with an FHA program, you could go as low as 500, but most lenders won't go below a 580. So you could go as low as a 580. They had a 588 credit score. I'll never forget, 588 credit score. They sold a property, bought another property, put down 20%, right? And I was able to get the loan approved. And that, again, they have a better interest rate than I do today on my home with a excellent credit score. And that's because due to the market. When rates are lower, that's where they are. When rates are lower in general, right? In terms of the market, when rates were at 2 and 3%, just because your credit score is a 500 don't mean that a lender now has to charge you an 8% interest rate. It doesn't work that way. If rates are at 2 and 3%, regardless of how bad your credit is, your interest rate is going to be around there, right? There's only so much a lender can charge you if they are giving you a government program. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Yeah. So that's why market rates, I pay attention to the market like every day. Like I'm addicted to CNBC because literally that is what kind of contradicts which direction our industry goes.
So if you got pretty much if you got a bad credit, be prepared to, or be open to at least put a little bit more money down. But you got to go FHA.
You got to go a government program, so you got to go FHA, VA. The thing is, if you don't necessarily have to put 20% down. Be ready to meet certain requirements though on the front end of the process, right? So if you coming in with a 580 credit score, you better be ready to pay off all your collections, right? You better be ready to, show some recently good history, like no lates in the last 12 months. Like I'm talking credit cards, auto loan, everything. Like that's when the underwriter, that history starts to kick in. So once you have below a 600, that's when that history and everything else starts to matter.
Right, like when was the last collection initiated?
Exactly.
How are you even making payments on time currently?
Exactly.
Okay.
So things like that.
Got you.
So it doesn't mean you have to put 20% down. This person was willing to put 20% down because they were like, hey, one, I want to try to keep my mortgage as low as possible. I'm selling the home. I have the money to do it. And second, they understood based off where their credit was that if I put this 20% down, it should solidify that I can get this loan because I have more skin in the game. And that's how it goes. Yeah.
Would you say it is easier, of your clients that you work with, who has an easier time getting into a home? Single folks or married folks, or, people in a relationship?
Yo, that's funny that you say that because I literally just had a situation where a couple, fiance, they're engaged. A couple that's engaged. Client calls me. He wants to buy a home, him and his fiance. I have them do the application and I go through everything and everything looks good, right? Him and his soon-to-be wife. And I go down on the credit score of the missus, soon-to-be missus, right? And I see a bankruptcy. And I'm like, dang, the bankruptcy happened about a year ago, right? So for those of you who don't know, with a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, if you want to get an FHA loan, you have to wait 2 years. That's just the bottom line. Like, that's the waiting period. You got to wait 2 years to get an FHA loan.
He can't take her off.
He could take her off, but he can't qualify by himself.
Ah, damn.
He can't qualify by himself because his income.
Right.
So he's making about a little under 40, and she was making about 40. So both of them combined,
making enough
to qualify for something.
Yeah, damn.
But now because his fiance has that bankruptcy from a year ago, she was on the phone and she was kind of emotional and she was like apologizing to him. And she was like, I'm sorry. And then he was like, no, it's fine or whatever. But I mean, in some circumstances, being married or being with somebody can hinder you from buying a home. But what I will say is what I've seen typically is married people who are organized with their finances are more likely to qualify for a home than a single person.
Got you.
Are more likely. Two incomes are always better than one.
Right.
So it's just easier to navigate that, right? But I've also seen couples who are just completely unorganized with their finances. And this is going to be a little like off track. I think it's imperative, like, for example, and God forbid if anything happened to my wife, but if my wife was to perish today, I know all of her financial responsibilities. that's the way it should be, right? Like, because, we have kids, things happen. You got to be willing to say, okay, you got to look at worst case scenario, right? And be willing to say, okay, if something does happen, what's the next step, right? Because life doesn't stop. These bills are not going to stop coming in, right? These people are still going to be knocking on your door asking for, hey, I'm sorry, but hey, I need that payment, right? So, as, responsible adults, especially with kids, when you have kids, as couples, sit down and go over your finances. Literally open the book, open that door. Sometimes I go through like people's credit with their significant others, and the significant other is shocked. Like, you got a collection? Oh, you got this? You got this credit card? You got this maxed out? When did you do that? When did you do that? Like, they don't even know that their wife is going on crazy Target springs. Like, we know all our wives go on Target sprees. I mean, that's
you
just
gotta,
what it is.
Except that if not Target, Amazon,
yeah, one one or the other. But again, it's important that you have that dialogue, right? Y'all should be an open book for each other. Like, literally every week, my wife and I, we sit down, we go over our finances.
Yeah.
I could tell you, and this is not to clock anybody, anything. I'm the money guy in the marriage. Like, my wife understands that, right? And there's some things that my wife is amazing at, that she's good at, and I leave that to her. But regardless of whatever, each of us are really good at, we can sit down and have conversation and say, okay, babe, you lead in this, let me lead in this, right? Because that's going to take us to the promised land of where we want to be in our marriage and in our relationship, and where we want to guide our family. So I always encourage couples, like, yo, you shouldn't be surprised when you're coming to get a loan and I'm saying, well, you got this collection, and then your husband's like, what? She got this collection? Wait, let me call her. Like, now he's upset because he don't even know, like, you've been running up a credit card, or you got, 2 or 3 collections that's holding y'all back and y'all family's future from what y'all trying to attain. So,
man, drop the mic on that one. That was, we're going to end it right there on that note. But before we do, I do want to get your 2 cents on this one. I like to ask this question at the end, and it's the red pill, blue pill. Kind of like the Matrix, So I'm gonna pass the mic off to you, Morpheus, and
Morpheus.
You're gonna be Morpheus, bro. And I want you to give our listeners, since we're talking about this housing market and just the future of buying a home, give our listeners a red pill and a blue pill. Like, if you could create that scenario, what would it look like? Between what they would pick, if they had to choose one.
What do you mean? Like, when you say scenario, like,
let's say, for example, like how we went back to red pill is you buy a home that's in an area you want, but it's a fixer upper. Yeah. Versus you buy a home that's perfect, but it's in a D area. That's like red pill, blue pill.
That.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, no, that's a great question. I would say, for sure. So, would you rather? All right, picture this. If you're someone who is looking to buy a home within the next, let's say, 5 years, right, and you have the means to, meaning
that's important.
You have fair credit. You don't even got to be excellent. Fair credit. You got some money, and you have consistent employment history, and your income is decent, right? You can afford a home. You've been paying rent at $2,000 a month or whatever, and you tired of it, you tired of your landlord, and you considering buying a home, but you just like, I don't know, let me see, what's going on with the market. Would you rather hop into the market today, right, where yes, demand is still up, but we have inventory that's willing to sit on the market a little bit longer because inventory is not like what it was 2 years ago, right? A year or two ago, right? So now you have the ability to come in and negotiate with a seller and reduce the sales price of the property, let's say by 10%, and also get some money towards closing costs. Okay. Right? But your interest rate is going to be at a 7%.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is get in the market today.
Hit market today.
High interest rate, but negotiation power.
Negotiation power. All right. So you could negotiate down the sales price, and you can get closing costs, right? Okay. So you
That's
can
the
save
red
money.
pill.
That's the red pill.
All right.
Now the blue pill is you can wait, right? But when you wait, the good thing is rates will come back down. So instead of getting at 7%, you could get a 5% interest rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But demand increases. Now you gotta fight, right, for
You're in a
homes
bid
on the
war.
market. So it's a bidding war. So you gotta come in strong, like highest and best all day. Meaning you ain't negotiating at all. And now you have to buy a home at 10% higher than what it's worth.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because I remember that, bro. During that one specific time, we saw homes that, we was getting our buyers, even
Yeah.
as a wholesaler, we getting
Yeah.
our buyers up,
Yeah.
$10, $20, $50,000.
Yep.
Crazy. Okay, so you got red pill is you get in the market today, high interest rate, but negotiation power.
Yep.
Blue pill is you wait a little bit, low interest rate, but no room to wiggle. If anything, you got to overpay.
Exactly.
That's a great scenario. Which one y'all picking? So what I'm gonna do is later on I'm gonna pick this apart. I'm gonna put that red pill, blue pill scenario in the Facebook group.
Yep.
So if y'all watching this on YouTube, you're gonna see the link to join the Facebook group. You can vote on Facebook. To those that are already in the Facebook community, go ahead and hit that poll. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, you can also hit that poll as well. My question for you before we wrap up too, Ben, is, with you now being a homeowner, and knowing what you know now, being in the space that you've been in for the last 6 years or so, what would be some advice you would give to 18-year-old Ben, as they are transitioning into, becoming a man and, looking on buying a home in the future?
She's 18-year-old me. I can't even. Where was I at 18?
Right, that's a great question too. Where was you?
I
What was you doing?
Man, I was in college. Shoot. 18-year-old me buying a home, being the man that I am today. Advice that I would have for myself. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. I think I get so caught up in what I'm trying to do for the future. Like I'm trying to align everything. Like that's one thing my wife will tell you. Like I'm very strategic. I never do anything on accident. I'm very methodical, strategic. I'm always planning 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead. And one thing about that is I'm never really in the moment. It sucks. Like when we bought the home, it didn't hit me. I don't even think now it still really hit me, right? Like for her, it was emotional. Like she was really in the moment. For me, I'm like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
We gotta go. We gotta rip up the carpet. We gotta pick up the floors. We gotta paint the walls. What's next? Like that's on my mind. So I think for me, the advice I would have for myself is, hey man, you're on the right track. You're doing everything you need to do, and you have a lot of potential. Enjoy the journey, right? Enjoy the journey, because those moments you only gonna live them once. So I'm hoping that I get going. Man, I'm about to be 30. Dang, I feel old.
Dang,
I'm
right?
about to be my 20s is gone.
Keeping up.
Yeah. So just enjoy the journey, man. So just enjoying the journey.
Enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. I love that, man. We
Yeah.
definitely need to, take that lesson and heed it as well. Not just for young Ben, but all of us could really, enjoy the process a lot more. Understand that we humans, we going through a human experience.
Yeah.
But the potential is godlike, right?
Facts.
Like if we just get over the fact that we having a human experience and we facing human dilemmas, and we can just enjoy that process of just being human, we really get to tap into that true potential that we have on the other side of that. So Ben, I appreciate having you. Go ahead and talk to the listeners, talk to the audience, tell them where they could find you, what you got coming up, any predictions you might have. Now is the time to lay it on them, bro.
Man, nah, nothing much, man. First of all, I appreciate Q for having me on this podcast, man. I'm Ben Koulibaly, Ben the Banker. Guys, you can find me on all social media platforms. That's Instagram, that's TikTok, and soon to be on YouTube as well. So make sure y'all follow me, man, and I will help anybody who's out there looking to make home ownership a reality for themselves or their family. Catch y'all.
Let's get it. Well, bro, I appreciate having you on the platform. And to our listeners, I appreciate having you. Thanks for tuning into the $1 Million Mind podcast week in, week out. And if you are tapping in with us for the first time, just make sure you hit that subscribe button. Go ahead and comment and let us know what you took out the most from this episode, what type of conversations you would love to see in the future. And we do a pretty good job of bringing those fresh conversations and that information over to you. So make sure you subscribe and turn on that bell so you get notified when those conversations get live. But my name is Kai Speaks. You just heard from Ben Koulibaly on the real estate market, the do's, the don'ts, the myths, everything you need to look out. So make sure you're prepared to buy a home this year or next year or whenever you're ready. Tap in and see you soon. Peace.
That was a good show.